Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, celebrating the holiday with fresh local produce, quality meats, and seasonal favorites. Shop in-store or let Safeway do the shopping this holiday season with free curbside pickup using the Safeway app.
Snowplows are out across the Front Range this morning, but drivers still should budget a little extra time if they're heading through the Denver metro or up to the high country. Meanwhile, in Colorado Springs, city councilors are voicing frustration with the state's approach over changes to Space Command. They object to Attorney General Phil Weiser's decision to sue over President Trump's plan to relocate the program to Alabama. Some say the litigation could jeopardize future military investments in Colorado. For now, though, and despite a city council resolution opposing it, the lawsuit is moving forward. I'm Haley May. Coming up, the National Renewable Energy Lab in Golden has a new name.
Removing renewable energy from the name of the lab makes one, unfortunately, think that there is a tempering of investment or interest in clean energy sources.
Plus, the state's top wildlife official has stepped down.
The moment that he stepped into his role as director at Colorado Parks and Wildlife, it was wolves, wolves, and more wolves.
Where wolf reintroduction stands at this moment of transition. And we descend into the world of underground electronic dance music. Literally.
We just got to go raid a tunnel and invite everyone, and then we get to curate these events.
It's Wednesday, December 3rd. Here's the news in Colorado today. One of Colorado's most influential research hubs has a new name. The Department of Energy has officially renamed the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or Nrel, as the National Laboratory of the Rockies. Arlo spoke with CPR's Sam Brash about the change.
The new name went live on Monday, and it's already reflected on the lab's website and communications. And this shift might be more than just a fresh new name. For decades, Nrel has been a national leader in renewable energy and energy-efficient research. Critics say the rebrand is another example of the Trump administration trying to suppress climate science and climate tech in favor of fossil fuels. Sam, you've been covering Nrel for years, so let's start with what just happened. Did you see this name change coming?
Not really, or at least not this suddenly. The lab announced the shift in a news release late Monday afternoon, and it quotes top officials with the Department of Energy, which oversees the lab formerly known as Nrel, who say the government's goal is to, quote, drive down costs and help the country meet its soaring energy demand. They say cutting renewables from the name better reflects that mission. But like you noted, we've also seen a pattern under President Trump. Federal agencies have often restructured or ended offices and agencies focused on things like climate science or environmental justice.
I want to focus for a second on the R in the former name, that focus on renewable energy that had guided their research, right?
Yeah, for literal decades. So Nrel was founded in 1977 as the Solar Energy Research Institute in Golden, and it was meant to be a response to the 1970s energy crisis. It became Nrel in 1991 under President George H.W. Bush, and for the past almost 50 years, the lab had a mission to focus on basic research and commercialization of things like wind, solar, geothermal, plus new tech like energy-efficient walls and windows. The whole goal was to make sure that the U.S. had alternatives to fossil fuels.
Okay, and for that end, what kind of things did they come up with?
So it's been the birthplace of all kinds of innovations in solar panels, wind turbine design, hydrogen fuel, battery technology. Just last year, it won 46 patents for cutting-edge software and energy tools, technologies that, could maybe lead to new startups or help existing companies, improve their products.
So this name change, does it mean that they won't be doing that kind of work anymore?
We don't really know, but that's what critics are afraid of. Many see it as an attempt to sideline renewable energy development, which President Trump has called, quote, the scam of the century. Democratic Senator Michael Bennet and Colorado environmental groups worry the new name signals clean energy won't be part of the lab's research going forward. And all this is about bringing federal labs in line with the president's fossil fuel agenda, which is summarized by his slogan, drill, baby, drill.
Yeah. Have you been able to talk to some of the employees about the name change?
I haven't been able to talk to current employees yet, so, my email is always open if they're listening to this right now. I have spoken to James Bosch. He worked in public affairs at Nrel until last May when he was laid off in a round of job cuts at the lab. And he said, look, a name change is basically just branding.
The important thing is the funding, that the funding has to come from the U.S. Congress. Removing renewable energy from the name of the lab makes one, unfortunately, think that there is a tempering of investment or interest in clean energy sources.
Well, on that idea of funding, where does that stand? Is the money for what's now the National Lab of the Rockies in jeopardy?
Possibly. So President Trump has proposed significant cuts to renewable energy research, but Congress will set the final budget, and it's unclear if they'll approve those plans.
CPR Sam Brash, thank you.
Thank you.
Colorado's top wildlife official, Jeff Davis, has stepped down. He was the director of Colorado Parks and Wildlife for more than 2 years. Tracy Ross of the Colorado Sun reported on his decision and joins us now. Hey, Tracy.
Hi, Haley.
This move was pretty sudden. Do we know why Davis is leaving?
The statement that the Colorado Department of Natural Resources put out didn't specify a reason. He's transitioning to a senior policy advisor role in the department's executive director's office.
So he could still be shaping the state's natural resource policies to some degree, but he's no longer leading parks and wildlife.
That's right. Yeah, and I don't think he'll have anything to do with the state's wolf program anymore.
And CPW has been running Colorado's voter-approved wolf integration program. It's made headlines a lot recently. How involved was he in that exactly?
So from the moment that he stepped into his role as director at Colorado Parks and Wildlife, it was wolves, wolves, and more wolves. He started in May of 2023, and the first wolves were released in December 2023, and it was controversial from the start. Ranchers were already against it, and tensions escalated right away because CPW didn't tell the communities they were releasing them in that they were coming. Then 2 wolves mated, and the male started preying on 2 ranchers' livestock. The big problem there is that when this whole thing started, CPW didn't have guidelines for when ranchers or even the agency could kill wolves that were eating livestock, which led to a lot of confusion and frustration.
On top of those rancher issues, wolf advocates also see flaws with how the program's played out under Davis's leadership. Can you just walk me through the timeline for both sides?
Yes, this is a very dramatic story. So to solve the issues for Western Slope ranchers, Davis decided to trap the Copper Creek pack that had formed and put them in captivity. But some advocates thought that that was way too much human intervention. CPW also left 1 wolf pup behind when they captured the other 4 pups and the adults. And then a few months later, they re-released the Copper Creek pack in Pitkin County, which just relocated the problem. And then in addition to that, the program ended up costing way more than projected. CPW has spent $2.2 million more than what was expected. And the state has released 25 wolves since the program started, and 10 of them have died, which is also a big concern for advocates and biologists.
So now with this change of leadership, do we have any sense about whether the wolf plan will also see changes?
I do not. I wish I did, but they're not revealing anything at the moment. And now the program is kind of in limbo because of federal intervention. The Trump administration is making it harder with the Department of Fish and Wildlife order telling CPW that wolves have to come to from U.S. states and not Canada, which is where CPW got the last batch of wolves and was planning to get the next batch. Then Colorado requested some wolves from Washington state in November, but the plea was denied with the Fish and Wildlife Department in Washington citing its declining gray wolf population. And all of this is to say we don't know where wolves could come from next, and there's no clarity right now around the program's future.
What about any of the other CPW initiatives that Davis led? Is there anything that we should be keeping an eye on?
One thing I've heard in the couple of years that I've been covering this from ranchers and hunting and fishing groups is that there is worry that the Department of Natural Resources is moving away from hunting and fishing priorities toward more conservation, while others are pushing for this to happen. When I interviewed Davis a while ago, he said he didn't see the shift.
Tracy, before we wrap up, what do we know about who might step into this job now?
Officials say the hiring process for a new permanent director will, quote, begin soon. I don't really know exactly what that means. But in the meantime, the former executive director of the Colorado Department of Military and Veterans Affairs is heading CPW. She also worked for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in Lakewood in her civilian life, so she does have experience with Colorado's outdoors. She started this week.
All right, Tracy Ross with the Colorado Sun. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you didn't already know, Denver is a hotbed for electronic dance music, or EDM. It's arguably the dubstep capital of the U.S. That's the type of EDM you're hearing now. The city has some infamous above-ground venues for EDM and an unofficial underground scene. Denverite's Kevin Beatty recently ventured into it. Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Bozzy.
So to explore this part of local arts culture, you ended up at a rave that was not exactly legal.
Yeah, it wasn't legal. It was in a stormwater drainage tunnel at the end of Sanderson Gulch near Ruby Hill Park in Denver. The hosts of the party were the dubstep duo Baruka and their manager Scott Villanueva, and they carried hundreds of pounds of gear into this tunnel, crossing a creek, going down into a field of boulders with speakers and decks, even a generator.
Wow.
The duo said they sold over 100 tickets at $15 each. And to preserve some secrecy, interested ravers had to text the word rave to a number, pay through a URL that was texted back, and then wait for the night of the show for directions on how to get into this storm drain.
Those are some really committed fans.
I think so. A few dozen people showed up before it got shut down. They had real professional lasers lighting up this graffiti chamber in the tunnel, fog machines, big metal barriers like you might see at a music festival, people checking IDs at the door, and it sounded pretty good.
It does sound like an impressive scene. So Denver does already have legit venues for electronic music. Why then are people choosing to go underground to illegal events like this?
There are a lot of reasons, according to Villanueva, who's trying to get into this scene in a more professional way. But he said it's really hard for smaller artists like Baruka to book shows.
So much of what gets you booked today is social media. It's not really the sound or your music that's getting you booked in these spaces. We just got to go raid a tunnel and invite everyone, and then we get to curate these events rather than have to cater to what's going to sell the most in a venue.
And underground shows, in warehouses and abandoned buildings, that's a really important part of electronic music's history and culture. I met Burke Gleason outside of the party, who's been in this scene for over a decade.
Why the underground scene matters to me is because the original reason, and you can trace this back to Chicago House, you can trace this back to old stuff, but the original point of electronic music was it was for weirdos, it was for outcasts. The underground scene,
it belongs to you still.
It belongs to the people who really found a home in EDM.
They do have a pretty convincing explanation for why they want to host their own events like this. But again, just to be clear for anyone who thinks this sounds like fun, a storm drain can be a dangerous place for a party. There's just no way that's up to code.
Yeah, it's dangerous. Like this tunnel, if there was a flash flood, we would have been in serious trouble.
Yikes.
But there was a time when parties like this were more common here in these warehousey kind of unsanctioned venues. And then in 2016, there was a fire at a club in California that killed 36 people. And cities like Denver immediately cracked down on places like that. And the scene never really bounced back, in part because police target underground parties because of safety concerns. And that's what happened here.
That's right. You said the party got busted.
Yeah, around 10 p.m., it felt like the energy was just taking off when then all of a sudden someone cut the lights and the music, and I heard someone whisper, "Are we hiding?" And the cops were outside, and they were in the tunnel in no time. But they were pretty polite. There were about 10 officers who were all fairly young themselves. I heard one say something like, "You have to leave, but this is pretty sick."
Amazing.
The cops told me they had gotten some complaints, but they really politely ushered everyone out of the tunnel. And it took serious manpower. People stuck around to help these guys carry all their gear out of the tunnel. And then they went to a basement in Lakewood to finish their sets. And my favorite detail about this after party is that everyone had to take off their shoes on the way in. So it was like this really polite entrance to keep raving.
Well, that's nice to hear. Everyone's being polite.
And, it could have been worse. No one was arrested. No one got hurt. Baruca and Villanueva said they had no regrets, even though they will be looking for a more permanent event next time.
That sounds like a good idea. So what does happen next for these artists?
Well, they have a rooftop in mind, but a week after this party got busted up, Villanueva sent me a pitch deck that he had been building to pitch cities on activating unused spaces for parties, like a drainage tunnel. I have a hard time seeing Denver greenlighting this particular spot, but maybe he'll find his legal underground somewhere else.
Denverite Kevin Beatty is back from the rave scene. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Bozzy.
Reporting for today's show came from KRCC's Brianna Heaney. Temperatures will stay below freezing for a large chunk of the state through tomorrow morning, so bundle up, stay safe, and join us again for more local news and updates. I'm Haley May. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, offering convenient delivery and free pickup to help with the busy times this holiday. Online customers enjoy the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Get started in the Safeway app or at safeway.com.